Hello everybody, Scarpo here. You can tell a lot about a culture by its laws. I think often that's overlooked. We talk a lot about too many laws, too big of government, but we forget where those laws come from. Us. We make these laws to protect ourselves, or at least we think we do. And for the most part they tend to work. I see a lot of failed laws and a lot of outdated laws. But for the most part, considering how many millions of laws we probably have, people tend to be happy and have most of their rights. Of course, there are always going to be exceptions. People are always going to want something that someone else doesn't want, and therefore there will be a conflict arising out of that difference in opinion. Now, I'm not one to defend big government or government in general. In fact, if I were to say I were anything, I would be more or less of an anarchist viewpoint. And that's not in the old standard anarchist viewpoint that people tend to hold, riots and looting in the streets. But a people's government by the people is not what we have, and we tend to think that this is what our country was envisioned to be, and that's just not the case. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say all the laws that we have are functional, and many of them are overlooked, but I'd like to consider for a moment the blame that we put on our leaders and the heat that they take for some of the laws that they have to put into effect. Some of the bigger issues, such as, let's say, abortion, those have plagued our communities for years, ever since abortion was really an issue, with the Roe versus Wade. Everything from that point has been a constant battle. The people spoke their minds. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are happy with the law. As you can see, people standing on street corners holding signs with pictures of dead fetuses and bloody babies. They stand right down the street from my house. Haven't seen them in a little while, but I stopped and had a conversation with them. And I understand people's passions for what they believe. And I understand that people need to express the way that they feel. But this, of course, causes animosity and angst on the other side of the fence, with those who don't agree with them. And this, folks, is where we have a democracy. And this is what a democracy is. As Socrates said that democracy was the worst form of government, and I believe someone else said it was the worst form of government except the others that had been tried. Many have been tried, and we tend to cast stones at socialism, communism, anything that happens to do with spreading the wealth, but capitalism is considered okay, even though a majority of the people are living way below the level that they should be. Now, as a whole, I think humanity, at least Americans, are living above our means. Even those in America who are at the poverty level, they tend to choose where they want to spend their money. For example, a person who says they can't afford food for the month, they may be a chain smoker and an alcoholic. So they're able to buy the booze and the cigarettes, but they can't afford the food. Seems to be overlooked as well in a lot of people's own personal lives, but that's to each individual. But I've seen that people can live on very little money if they really need to. Now, I don't know the balance of wealth or what it should really be. I don't think anyone does. From what I've looked at, even the top economists aren't quite sure what we could really do if we put all of our money and all of our efforts into bettering mankind. If we took all of our weapons of war, all of the useless weapons of war we're still creating, and put them into life-saving cures, medical help for those who need it, education, maybe we could do better. But consider this, even if the education system was better and everyone got a full-blown education, that means everyone would feel entitled to a good job. And the fact is, there just aren't enough good jobs out there. So we come down to the issue of this slave class we talk about, which is really the backbone of society. So we can't get around the mundane jobs, and a person who becomes more and more educated has a harder and harder time taking those mundane jobs. This is a major issue. It always has been, through all the cultures of history. So we're divided by social status, by class, and it's almost imperative that we do. It's how we treat one another that's the difference. Just because a person has a lesser job doesn't mean they should be a lesser person. And this brings all types of problems to the table. And this is why socialism fails. People who try harder don't get the recognition that they deserve, or that they think they deserve. Now, even if we did take all the money and all the resources and spread them out evenly around the world, we still don't know exactly how we would fare. And to tell you the truth, the U.S. spends a majority of our money on our military. Over half of our money goes to the military, and we are right now building tanks and helicopters and airplanes that the military is saying they do not want. But the U.S. government is pushing them on the military, telling them that they have to take them anyway, because they're afraid that when they collapse 6,000 jobs creating these contraptions that we don't need anymore, that our economy will start to implode. So here we are at a catch-22. We're a war nation, and we have no choice but to remain at war. We've had over 20 wars in our short life. Where do we go from here? What can we do to get ourselves out of the situation that we're in? I don't know if we can. And this is why when people say we need to remove government, they're basically saying we need to remove our neighbors, which may not be too far from the truth in a lot of cases. We are the people, and we the people make the decisions that lead to where our country goes. And no matter how much we want to lay the blame, no matter how much we want to point the finger at our leaders, and yes, some of them do deserve to have their finger pointed at them, in the end, we're still stuck with the same problems. And it doesn't matter if you vote Republican next time and Democrat next time after that. It's going to continue to go back and forth. It's the same garbage. And people still have this illusion that they have a choice when they vote. We can already see through history that that's just not true. They will always find a way to twist the votes to the advantage of the party they want in office. And the fact is, both parties are usually wanted in office. It's irrelevant who wins. And if you want to go even deeper than that, you can strip down the Democrats and the Republicans to their bare values and find that the values are usually the same. Very little difference. I know a lot of people would argue that, but the main differences, the most important ones, they both answer to big business. They both answer to corporate interests. Goldman Sachs was the main contributor for both candidates in the last election. When people start to do their homework, they see that they've been lied to. They see that no matter where they turn, they feel like they're screwed. So the question isn't who's to blame or what are the big problems. The question is, what are we going to do about the ones that we can do anything about? And this is where all of us need to come together. We need to figure out how we can act locally, how we can make a difference, how we can make some sort of an impact. It's not too egotistical to think that a generation ahead we could change the world. And this leads me to my biggest peeve, which is defeatist attitudes. A lot of people out there would like to think that we have no choice, that it's over, that society is ended, we've pushed our limits, humanity has failed, we have no chance. In this way, a person can basically take what they want, throw in the towel, give up all hope. Defeatist attitudes lead to beliefs like Jesus will return and he'll take the evil sinners away, so we don't need to deal with it. I've had conversations with religious folks who say, well, God will deal with those people later. I say, well, what about now? What about the millions who are being harmed now? I'm not going to wait for God to step in. This is us. This is humans. We have to deal with these situations. And it seems like whenever there's something that we feel like we can make a difference and we want to be noticed, then we want to be recognized and we put in all the effort. But the minute something becomes too difficult, too complicated, it's God's will. And that's not the way that a society moves forward. And one might ask, what is moving forward? And who am I to say what moving forward is? Well, honestly, I do not know. I don't know what the ultimate goal of mankind should be. And when people step back and say, look at all the progress, look at all the things we've created, I say, but to what end? How is it helping anything? And then I look at the cases individually. I look at the things that we've created medically. I look at the things we've created to extend our lives, to help us, to benefit us. And we've done a lot of good. But everything that's ever been created for good has been used for evil as well. It's back to the old knife metaphor. The oldest weapon, but it's also the oldest tool. Nuclear energy is no different than a knife. If we'd put as much time and energy into making nuclear energy safe, which I believe with enough research and effort we could have made it reasonably safe, we could have gone a lot farther in reducing carbon emissions. But even then, to what end? You do your research on carbon emissions and find that it's nothing compared to even volcanoes, and in fact, farm animals are more of an air polluter, I believe, worldwide than automobiles. So we're stuck. Humans are stuck, and we feel cornered, and we don't know what to do. So I could talk all day about that. So let's talk about what we can do. We can act locally. We can go to our town meetings. At the very least, we can plant a garden in our yard, an organic garden. Buy some heirloom seeds, some good quality food. And this is a big difference, because today, our heirloom seeds are under threat. The GMO and Monsanto issue is way too complex to deal with here. All I can say is that the individual should know how to grow their own garden and should know how to produce their own food, even that one season a year where they can. In this way, a person will learn to love their food, understand their food, become more intimate with what they're eating. Steaks don't grow on the store shelves. Watching how meat, it turns a person off. You'll want to get free-range chicken instead of just buying whatever. And these small differences, these small changes, force corporations to make a difference. You may not think it makes a difference, but it does. Look at McDonald's, for example. I haven't eaten McDonald's in 10 years. I hate that place. But look at what they've tried to do on their menu. They've tried to add all these healthy option menu items. Well, when did that come around? Why did that happen? It doesn't mean they are healthy, but it means that they know what the people want. And when you look at these big companies and the differences they try to make, you can see that they are trying to cater to the public. Therefore, all this green movement with all these businesses, it means that people are making a difference with their small actions. Large companies recycling huge amounts of metals and plastics and glass that we used to throw in the landfill. Yes, as humans multiply, we are creating more and more garbage, and there's no way around it. But without making any change or effort whatsoever, imagine where we would be today. So I think we are making a difference. The question is, which way do we turn now? Where do we focus the most of our attention? And I think the individual community effort is going to be the savior of mankind, but only time will tell. So hope you've enjoyed this, and everyone have a great day, and I'll be back with more whenever I feel like it. Peace and love.